Well, for more, I'm joined in the studio by International Affairs Editor Rochelle Ferguson. Great to have you with us in the studio,
Hi, Hexie.
Rochelle. What exactly are those taking part in this meeting hoping to gain?
Well, I think there are several objectives. I think there are two main objectives that we can talk about. We can bring up on your screens for you. One of those objectives, then, this diplomatic push to halt the conflict in the Strait of Hormuz. You said it there. You know, Iran imposing this blockade on the 28th of February off the back of the war launched by Israel and the US. Of course, since then, the United States has included their own blockade. And what you have is world leaders worried about the fact that if this blockade continues, consumers are going to begin feeling the pinch, feeling the effects of this, notably with higher inflation rates, notably with food shortages. Let's not forget flight cancellations, because, of course, there'll be a lack of fuel if things continue this way. 40 countries then involved, saying, look, how can we end this conflict diplomatically? So Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, Asia Pacific there. Of course, the belligerent countries not involved. But a clear objective would be to stop what's going on. A second objective then is this idea of a possible deployment of a multinational force to the Strait of Hormuz. Again, Starmer and Macron, the British and French counterparts respectively, saying that this would be the preparation for a deployment, saying this would only be defensive, and it would only happen, of course, once the United States and Iran are able to end this conflict. If you're looking for a similarity, think the coalition of the willing that was, again, spearheaded by Starmer and Macron. Once again, that would only go into play, would only be implemented once Russia ends its invasion of Ukraine. But again, this idea that, you know, Europe does have a role to play, and so equally do a number of other countries who are impacted by this pending global recession.
Rochelle, these talks in Paris today come as Pakistan is working to organise a fresh round of peace talks between the US and Iran in Islamabad. Can the talks today really hope of having any real impact on the situation in the Middle East?
I think it's a good question. I think it's important to separate the optics of today's talk, whether, you know, it's a video conference for most, but of course there are key EU leaders here. And there's also the concrete aspect of these talks. I mean, first of all, this is about a growing chorus of US allies saying, you know, we are disapproving of Donald Trump's method here, of the way in which this war on Iran has been conducted. Of course, European allies have been berated, both Keir Starmer and also Emmanuel Macron. They've been at the back foot of this. Of course, they weren't consulted going into this. Neither was NATO, for that matter. So today is about saying, look, you know, we are at this growing chorus of voices. You are now greatly impacting our global economy. We're all feeling the pinch of this. And so, you know, the symbolism is what I'm trying to say is important. Secondly, I think that Europe does have a lot to offer here. I think number one, and we can bring up on your screens for you, something that Europe might be able to offer would be intelligence sharing between EU countries. The second thing would be these mine clearance capabilities. Now, we know that Iran has laid several mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Britain has key capabilities there. There are, you know, minesweepers in the region. Belgium, the Netherlands, France have all come forward and said we equally have a great deal of competence when it comes to removing mines. So that's something that, once again, if this multinational coalition does come into place once the war is over, that they could certainly offer. Radar technology is as well another one. I mean, many people don't know, but let's say Europe is at the cutting edge of radar technology, with a huge industry here. Radar technology, which is rapidly growing. It's, of course, paramount for sea navigation, for air, land. So that could certainly be spearheaded by Europeans. And just a final point there, Haxi, would be military escorts. Once again, the EU has a great deal of experience in navigating kind of multilateral naval operations in particularly difficult parts of the world. Think the Horn of Africa, for example. A lot of experience there, and I think that's what EU leaders, in conjunction with their counterparts, will want to put on the table today. And of course, this is motivated by, once again, this pending global recession.
Rochelle, thank you very much.